Welcome to our podcast series on diversity and inclusion, brought to you by the Association for Coaching, the world's leading independent professional body dedicated to promoting best practice and raising the standards of coaching worldwide. I'm Dr. Alexandra Morgan, Senior Lecturer and Coach Educator. In this series, we're privileged to be talking to a superb range of coaches and consultants whose work is making a significant contribution to advancing diversity and inclusion in society and in the coaching profession. We hope this series sparks curiosity and encourages change. Hi, I'm Alex Morgan, your podcast host for this series on equality, diversity and inclusion. With me today, I have Greg Baker, and Greg is a Paralympic coach and executive coach, and you may have heard him on previous podcasts. So welcome, Greg.
Thanks, Alex. Really good to be here.
Yeah, lovely to see you again. So Greg, just for those listeners who haven't met you, can you just give us some background on who you are and your Paralympic work? And congratulations, by the way, for the great success for your particular team and the whole Paralympic team. But anyway, over to you. Tell us a bit about your work.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alex. So my background is and has been in high performance sport coaching. I was in my younger days an athlete, had a short international career representing England in table tennis up to sort of under 21 level. So representing England under 15, under 18, under 21 level, but got into coaching, sports coaching very, very early. Studied it at university, did a range of different coaching positions for a regional and national level, and then into international level with the Olympic table tennis England team, and then in the Paralympic team, working as a talent coach, then a performance coach, and ultimately into a head coach. And I've been the head coach of British para table tennis since 2009. I've been fortunate enough to been to 4 Paralympic games, and as you said, we just got back from Tokyo, which was a really successful games for us. So that's been my sort of main source of employment and background in high performance sport. But at the same time, I'm also a qualified executive coach, and have been working in that space now probably over the last 5 or 6 years, really taking the transitions learned from high performance sports coaching and leading into then working with senior leaders, emerging leaders in the corporate world and within different organizations, really to help them improve their leadership skills, but also get the best out of the teams that they work with and create new robust high performance teams. So that's been my background, and now sort of mixing the two together.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know we've had a chat before about what you can take from your Paralympic coaching into executive coaching. And I know performance, as you've just said, performance coaching is your thing. But can you tell us a little bit more about what it means to your clients, really? That I'm thinking your executive coaching clients. So what does it mean to them that you are also a Paralympic coach, do you think?
It's a great question. And I think it's something that brings a lot of engagement actually in the conversations, because one thing that my clients do talk about is how I would have delivered, if you like, under extremes amount of stress, extremes amount of pressure, delivering when it really matters at a World Championships or a Paralympic Games. And I think that gives them a confidence that I'm going to ask some really thought-provoking questions actually in our coaching engagement, because that is what I would do with a world-class athlete that might have already be a gold medalist. You know, what's my job then is to ask some real, at times, challenging questions, to challenge their beliefs, their assumptions, their thoughts, to get them to the next level, to try and win another gold or another medal, you know, in 4 years' time at the next games. So, you know, I think that's what they want me to do. They want me to hold the mirror up at times. They want me to challenge their beliefs. And for me to do that with world-class athletes, they want me to bring that into our coaching engagement, whichever client that I'm working with. In addition to that, one thing that, you know, clients have mentioned is my ability to flex and adapt my approach. Now, when you're working I think in any walks of life, really, in this day and age, but especially in the Paralympic world, that nobody is the same. So I work with a whole range of different abilities, different disabilities, of course, because there are different classifications in the Paralympic world. We have obviously different genders, we have different ages, all the way from a 17-year-old all the way up to a 48, 49, 50-year-old, because in some of the classifications you can go on for longer in terms of age than others. And so my ability to flex and change and adapt my approach depending on, do I be non-directive here, am I being directive, and what sort of question will I ask someone that's got 10 to 15 years of experience in high performance sport versus somebody that might be coming into it for the first time within just 6 months of joining our world-class program. So that ability to quickly change that stance and that coaching approach, I think, is something that clients they gain quite a lot of respect quickly for, and they want for me to use that approach depending on where they sit on their sort of leadership style as well.
Thank you. And your clients, in the context of Paralympic athletes, as you said, they all are differently abled, and there's a range of disabilities, as you have just said, that are on the team. Was there anything specific that you felt that you needed to learn about working with disabled clients before you entered that world?
So from a if we go the technical point of view, that can be totally sort of transitioned and translated from Olympic table tennis to Paralympic table tennis. You there are times when you need to, different classifications of sport can seem to be completely different because of the different technicalities, and it's something that you have to upskill yourself on. But I think the biggest learning for me going into the Paralympic world was to really understand where the athlete's coming from, looking at what their disability is, what their impairment is, and trying to really understand their world from where they've come from, their upbringing, what they've done prior to this athlete career, the positions that they've been in, what it feels like it to be in their position in society, where sometimes an able-bodied person might find things to be different to what a disabled person has gone through in terms of society, and where they go, simply to just go to your local cinema, your local supermarket, and trying to really understand their world and where they've come from. And I think that gives you a deeper awareness. It gives you a deeper view on perspectives on some of the issues and challenges that they might be having in their life as well as in their sporting career. So that was something that when I went into the Paralympic world, I didn't want to assume that I knew that, because obviously I didn't, because I don't have a disability and I've not been in some of the situations that my athletes have. So to ask real good questions, coaching questions, to really get an understanding and perspective on where they've been, what they're currently going through. And I think that brings you closer together in terms of relationships as well within the Paralympic world. And I've always have this saying that if you're closer together, you'll go the extra mile for each other when pressure is high, when stress is high, which obviously it is when we go away at our big competitions. So that was the one thing I wanted to upskill myself in. And that's where, by being a qualified coach, by going on coaching training programs, it keeps enhancing those skills. Because of course there are new athletes that are coming onto our program. There are athletes that will leave our program. But I think by upskilling my questioning, upskilling my perspective taking, upskilling me to be able to not only challenge my clients and athletes' beliefs, but also my own, I think it keeps you fresh and it keeps you being the best you can be as a coach. So I think, going back to your question, it was very much that, trying to see the world from their lens and not just my lens. And I think you can do that through having real sort of foundation and fundamental coaching skills and coaching techniques in the way that you lead and talk to people.
Thank you. As you were talking, and I was reflecting on what you were previously saying also about, the different levels of experience with some of your athletes, and some of them are maybe working towards the end of their Paralympic career. Do you find yourself coaching people out of athletics in that way, or, preparing people for a different, the next transition in their lives?
Yeah. And I think that's come to the forefront probably over the last 4 years. It's increased significantly. And I think COVID has increased that as well. Looking at athletes' well-being, seeing them as human beings in addition to only athletes, for example, because they have careers and they're going to be wanting to transition into different walks of life as well when they come to the end of their sporting career. We're fortunate enough as well in high performance sport to have what we call performance lifestyle advisors that will also work with the athlete on that. So they will work with them on their athletic journey, but also what they're going to do if eventually when they come out of the sort of athletic journey as well. But my job as a head coach is also to do that, because I think as sports and as coaches, we have a responsibility to help athletes see the other side of the journey. So not, to see them as a whole person, have that whole person approach to where that person's going, and have a really keen interest. And I think coaches, sports, organizations should be responsible for that, where someone goes and what they do in later life, because you would have had an input. We have a massive input into where somebody goes after the sport. So in answer to your question, yes, quite live conversations on how long an athlete wants to stay in the program for, how long they feel they can live up to the expectations and the performances that are required at this level, and then to coach them through what is next for them. Where are they now, but also what's next, and what do they need to get to that point. Where do they need to upskill themselves? Where do they need to go for more experience? And I think that is quite, and like I say, it's come to the forefront more in high performance sport, and it's probably something in the past that coaches wouldn't wanted to do or wanted to have the responsibility for. But now for me, coaching is about people. Coaching isn't about helping people be the best they can be, and that's also helping them go to the next journey or the next level for them or the next career for them. And I think not only does that help them then when they do eventually go into that career, it also helps your relationship now. So for example, if I have an athlete that wants to finish after Paris 2024 in 3 years' time, by having those conversations now, or by having those conversations, over the last sort of 2 years, it increases that relationship and that trust and that respect element, because the athlete feels as though I've got an interest of this athlete beyond their sporting career, and not just when they're in that sporting career. So actually it's a win-win for everyone, because you're gaining more respect, more trust, more understanding. That's going to help their high performance sport training. It's going to help the coach and athlete relationship, and it's also then going to help the athlete when they do eventually retire or want to go into a different career transition. So I've found that having those at times can be difficult conversations, or an athlete might not know what they want to do, but really trying to go deeper with that conversation, really understand what motivates them, where they want to go, really what ticks their box, really what their values are, and what really interests them. It enhances the relationship that we currently have now. And as I said before, to go that extra mile with each other, I think athletes and people really respect when you really want to get to know them and understand where they're going. And that's where I've seen to have some real great conversations with my athletes on.
And I can imagine your coaching training would be absolutely vital within those conversations. Your general person-centered approach, you were talking earlier about when you are, at least this is how I imagined the situation as you were talking, when you're in the moment with your clients, you might be literally right in the moment, in the middle of a game or surrounding before and afters, and you were talking about needing to choose how directive or indirective you are in those moments, and that you said depended on the athletes, maybe their age, their experience, what else is going on for them at the time. And what sprang to mind was that the Downey model of the different interventions, from very direct to non-direct interventions. And I'm often asked by coaches in training how you know where to pitch it. How do you know which end of that Downey model you might be using as your springboard? Have you got any advice to coaches in training about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's key. I think to be honest, I think this is the difference that makes a good coach between a world-class coach, and that's the same in sport or within business coaching, personal coaching. I really do, and that is one of my beliefs, but that's something that I feel quite strongly on. For me, it would be how they, or when I say they, clients or athletes, learn under pressure and under stress. So we might have a preference on how we learn when we are just in everyday life, where there isn't something that needs to be won or lost. But actually, when there's something on it, when there's something, there's the competitiveness comes in, and something is there to be won or lost, we can change our mindset, and we may think differently under pressure and stress. What I would say, my advice there is reflect on that. So getting clients to really reflect on how they feel they've acted or they thought differently when they going to deliver a big keynote speech, or they're going into a board meeting, or they're having to address their team, and the feelings that they go through, whether that's a thought psychologically or even physiologically, with the sort of, if it's sweating, is it nervousness in the stomach, to really talk openly about that with their coach, about what they were going through, what happened in a response to that, where did that meeting go, where did that speech go, or what happened to that team, and then to reflect, what happened, what does that mean, what will you do better next time, what are the cues next time that you can be more in tune to those feelings that you can then act on them when they come through next time. So we talk about reflection a lot, but I think reflection is absolutely key. And then I think it's the challenge, if you like, of the coach to ask the right questions to the client to get them to reflect on moments when they have been under stress or pressure. And that will then depend on what you're doing there as a coach, is you're getting in tune to how the client learns actually in the coaching experience and the coaching engagement, and then you can go down which route you think is right given the responses that they give you. Of course, in coaching, and I've used this in coaching relationships, is psychometric tools. You can find out where, what drives people, what some of their learning styles are, and I think from that you can get some valuable nuggets as well, which sort of questions to ask. But I think those sort of psychometric tools can change when you're under pressure, and I think people can change when you're under pressure. And I think a lot of times in my coaching engagements and working with clients, I'm working with leaders that are under pressure quite significantly, and therefore they need to make decisions under high amounts of pressure and stress. And so I think it's vital as the coach that does this person lead with a more logical point of view here when they're under pressure? Do they lead more of an expressive point of view? Are they actually really contained under pressure? And how does that hinder or help them when they're under pressure? So challenging those traits and challenging those behaviors when they are under stress is something that I think is vital for coaches. So again, I think it's key reflecting on yourself as a coach as well. Okay, how did that coaching conversation go? Did I draw everything from that conversation that I needed to? So reflecting on yourself, reflecting with your client, and then opening up and having those conversations around when your client felt under pressure or under stress or felt something different psychologically or physiologically. Opening up those conversations quite regular would be my advice.
Fantastic, thank you. Circling back around to your work with disabled athletes, I'm wondering, how accessible do you think coaching is, or do you think the coaching profession is, to disabled people?
It's a great question, and I'm a big believer that coaching should be accessible to all walks of life, more regular actually. One could say that coaching has been made available to people that can afford it, for example, or to high-level executives, senior leaders and senior leadership teams, in the corporate world, etc. And actually, I think coaching, should go everywhere, whether that's working with people in CEO positions, whether that's people just coming into organizations for the first time. And so you could suggest that people with disabilities may not be able to access that coaching as regular as somebody else. I think coaching is available for disabled people at the moment, but it definitely could be more enhanced. And I think that's the responsibility of organizations, coaches, coaching bodies, to try and help with that, to educate organizations and to educate people on where to go, one, for coaching, and then when coaching is available, who that gets access to. So I think, I'm a big believer that coaching should be inclusive for everyone at all walks of life and available. And of course, I'm going to be biased because it's helped me in my professional career. So I do think it can help a lot of people. And I just think the possibilities and the opportunities that coaching can bring to all different societies, cultures, people with disabilities, I think we can have a better world actually with good and quality coaching. And so let's try and make it accessible for everyone at all times. And I know there are organisations out there trying to do just that, but can we propel that more forward? Because I think the outcomes would be brilliant for everyone to see.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more. Is there anything sort of structural that you think organisations can do, or in our case, the Association for Coaching? Is there anything that we could really do to shift this along?
I think it would probably go back to what I said before about where I wanted to sort of stand myself when I first came into the Paralympic world on that education. I think education around, there is the sort of an expectation that if you're working with a disabled person that you should know what to do, or where how that person thinks, acts, etc. And I think there could be more work there around education around what does it really mean for people with disabilities in this world that we live in, and how do organisations help with that. I think with a greater educational piece, that's something that could open up the doors more, could allow you could also allow coaches to feel more credible in coaching people with disabilities, because there could be an assumption there that maybe they're not educated or they're not ready to coach people with disabilities, because they might see, how do I ask questions of this, and do I need to be careful here? And so that education piece, I think, is vital, so we have the rightly equipped coaches to coach disabled people and enhance their lives, enhance their careers like it can enhance other people's. So for me, it would come down to an educational piece. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. As you were talking, I was wondering what coaches could learn from Paralympians. What could we as a coaching body and people in the coaching profession actually learn from your Paralympic athletes and teammates? And, I'm thinking in terms of their, their dedication or their mindsets. What could we take from their success?
Yeah, I mean, I could be here all day on this one, but the things that, when you're asking that question there, Alex, what was coming to my head are not being afraid to fail is an absolute key one. The Paralympic athletes that we have in Great Britain, and they've shown it at, multiple Paralympic games now, but not being afraid to get something wrong in order to propel themselves forwards. And I think that's something from high performance coaching and high performance sport that we promote quite a lot, actually, that if we are going to move forwards, if we are going to make a difference in your performance or really change the way that you perform, you're going to get some things wrong along the way, but there's not going to be any consequences for you getting that wrong. Actually, we want you to do that to get you to reflect as an athlete or a coach of what you think you need to do then to go to the next level, and you'll get support with that through good coaching and good networks. And so I think that not being afraid to fail is huge. And it's not easy to have that mindset, and you need the right support around you. But that's something I think we can all learn from some of the Paralympic athletes that I work with or I see on a day-to-day basis who may have had difficult upbringings, who may not have been included in society as maybe their friends or as me or you, for example, and then they've still been able to achieve dreams and still been able to do what they've wanted to do through adversity, through probably setbacks, through challenges that come their way, whether that's in the sport, whether that's through in society. Again, I admire all of them, because it's amazing how they've done with what they've done with that. So they've built up a real key resilience in them. They've probably been knocked back or set back, multiple times in their life, but they've been able to roll the sleeves up and keep going, and to reflect on what they need to do differently. And I find that absolutely amazing. They can do that, which is fantastic. And then alongside that would be adaptability. So again, there are athletes who in the Paralympic world who, for example, won't be doing very well. They might not be performing at the highest level, and how they're able to adapt what they need to do in order then to win and be successful in 4 years' time, 5 years' time. Whether that's adapting psychologically, adapting physically, adapting tactically, technically, especially if they have a physical disability that is quite limited in their classification that they're in. Because we have classifications where you will get certain disabilities that it will be more challenging for that athlete with that disability to get to the top of that classification or that level of that performance that's needed. And still athletes are able to do it through having certain unique edges, certain super strengths that rely on when they're really under pressure, that makes them feel different to everybody else, that gives them that competitive advantage. And so that's what I think, people in businesses, leaders, all of us, about what's our super strength? What is it that we are or we have that other people don't, for example? And I think Paralympic athletes use that massively, that even though they're disabled and it's visually seen that they don't have what other people have, they still have, they believe, other things that able-bodied people don't have. And a lot of it comes from that commitment, that resilience, that being able to adapt, being really strong and delivering in the moment, because I've had experience of it when they've been growing up. So I think we can all learn from that, and that's why it is great to work with those athletes on a day-to-day basis, because whatever challenge they get put in their way, whatever setback they have, they're able to come through it. And I would say, however, that doesn't just happen automatically. That happens because of being in an environment where they're being supported and challenged at the same time, and it's not just one or the other. It's an equal thing where, as long as they feel trusted, as long as they have a lot of respect around them, then you can challenge them and you support them at the same time. And with that is a real strong ingredient for success. So a lot of it is that being able to combat through adversity and challenging. And I saw it actually even more so during COVID, where these athletes, they've been told that they can't train. We had the Tokyo Games coming up, at that time, less than 12 months before it got cancelled to 2021. And the way that these athletes responded, where they basically built their own gyms in the back garden, they were getting online and working with the strength and conditioning coaches, working with the technical coaches on anything that they could do to improve, speaks volumes that they didn't just sit and think, well, we can't train, we can't access the place that we normally go to, so we're doomed here, we're not going to be able to be as good as we wanted to be. They just got on with it. And I found that just an amazing to see that, and to see that your athletes can take full ownership and independence on their training program. So I think we can definitely all learn from that, as well as that. Anything that comes in our way, what opportunities do we still have to get better? What opportunity do we still have, even though we might have some challenges here? What still can we do to try and move forwards? And I think that's where the Paralympic athletes are doing that day to day.
Fantastic. And in that moment, that really difficult moment where, they had to do this massive mind shift about what was going to happen with the Olympic Games last year, were you in that with them? Were you coaching them at the same time? Yeah. And what I think that did for the coaching is that, the context has shifted, because now we are in a situation where we as coaches can't see the athletes. Everything's done on the screen, as I think we're all used to now. But at the time, that was strange, because you might think, well, what influence, if I can't technically coach, I'm talking about the sport technically, then a coach might think, well, how can I influence them? How can I gain? So we shifted on, this is about relationships now, actually. This is about how do we get to know our athletes more than any other coach knows their athlete from a different country. And that will improve our relationship when we come back into the sport, when things do get open up again. And everything I said about earlier, now it's about how do we go the extra mile for each other when we are under pressure and stress? Because I know now where this athlete, what makes them tick, how they learn, where their mind goes when they're under pressure. What sort of attributes and behaviors do they, so I can help influence that and ask the right questions at the right time. So we went down that route, which I think helped athletes feel really respected, even more respected than they did before, even more trusted than they did before, and have these real close relationships that we're on that journey together as a coach, as an athlete. And it's not one or the other, it's actually together. So that's what we wanted to do as a sport when COVID hit. How do we make a difference here? And we went down that route. And of course, I'm talking there like it was all, a lot of the coaching at the time was, and this is where, fundamental coaching really came into sports coaching, because you had athletes that had to make some ethical decisions on, can I carry on for another year when it did get cancelled? And we're talking 12 months down the road. Some of the athletes were waiting to start a family after the Tokyo Games in 2020. Some of them wanted to go on to do different careers after the games, so they were holding on, and then or they were going to retire. And all of a sudden, these games are getting 12 months delayed, and so you're having some real deep, meaningful conversations with athletes on what decisions do they make, where do they go, and ultimately it has to come from them. But again, through good questioning, thought-provoking questions, challenging them at times, but then really asking, what do they want? What do they need right now? Really help them move forward and make their own decisions with that. But that was where a lot of the conversation, because that was probably over a 6, 7, 8, 9 month window
at times some of the athletes feeling lost. I don't know in which direction to go, because they were building up for this big event, and so and all of a sudden it gets taken away from them. And some of them might think that they were peaking towards their best performance at the end of 2020. And actually, in another year, when they're a little bit older, will they be as good as they were now? Maybe this was my only chance to really get that gold medal, and now in 12 months' time, I may not be as stronger physically. And we're having to have all these conversations, and you can probably picture those coaching conversations as all that was happening.
Absolutely.
And I think it made it even more aware. And this is something that I was aware, pre-COVID, but I think it got enhanced more, that coaching is, especially sports coaching, is so much more than what you see maybe on the TV, where you've got a game going on. There's some tactical awareness, and you see the athlete and coach working, and then you see them go. There's so many other things that are happening, as there are in coaching with clients in business coaching, to really get to understand what's happening below the surface. And then you can start to challenge. Then you can start to really understand someone. Understand where they're coming from. And I think that got heightened more so during COVID. And what's quite ironic is that, COVID has happened for us, an absolute disaster of a time for the world. But selfishly for us as a sport, we've probably come on the end of it in a better place in terms of the relationships that we've formed and actually challenged the way that we do things internally. So it's amazing how that's had to happen for us to really have those analytical conversations. But that's where we were. So I think it was, if you like, it's a bit like constraint-based learning, where, we use that in sports coaching, where, you take certain things away from someone in order for them to deliver a certain performance. And I think that's what happened to us as coaches in COVID, is that all of a sudden we can't see our athletes. Whether we like it or not, we can't go and see them face to face. Whether we like it or not, we can't train in the centre that we train at for the next 9 months or however long it was. But what can we still do? And it brought out things that maybe we were below the surface that we wasn't using as much, that we are now using. Now we're back in the centre. We're using those things every day. So it brought new skills and new attributes, and challenged us even more as coaches, that we now, then our next question was, how do we still use those skills and not go back to what we always did before, because now we believe we're in a better place. So actually it's advanced things for us as coaches as well.
Sounds, the beauty of hindsight, sounds like an amazing experience, but I'm sure there were some really hair-raising moments along the way. Greg, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today. I found it absolutely fascinating. I'm sure there's going to be people out there that are going to want to get hold of you and learn more and find out more about you and your coaching practice. So how can people find you and get hold of you?
Yeah, sure. So ultimately, I use my LinkedIn quite a lot. So that there, Greg Baker with 1G at the end of Greg. So Greg Baker ACC is where I would be on LinkedIn, and you can see more about my sort of history and experience background on there, and feel free to message me on there. I use the messaging service quite a lot, or email me at gregbaker198@hotmail.com is the email that I use quite regular. And from a sort of Paralympic table tennis point of view, we have an active website, British Para Table Tennis. And so if you go into Google and put that in, it will be the first thing that comes up, will be our website, about all the bios of the coaches there, the athletes, how you can get involved. So that's also something that you can search. And I think quite surprisingly, actually, if you Google my name, Greg Baker Sport or Greg Baker Coaching, then quite a few things come for articles or other questions and answers that I've done, if you're quite interested in high performance sport and the links between coaching. So there are multiple articles and things on there that if people want to read or have a little listen to, then it will be on there as well.
Oh, fantastic. Yep, I'm going to take a look at more of that. So I hope everybody else will as well. All right. Thanks very much, Greg. Take care.
Thanks very much. No, I really enjoyed it. And it's amazing how quickly the time goes when you do these things.
So thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. I've been Alex Morgan. Our purpose is to inspire and champion coaching excellence, to advance the coaching profession and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organisations and in turn society. If you'd like to find out more, please follow us on LinkedIn and explore our webpage at theassociationforcoaching.com. There you can keep up to date with our latest episodes and conversations, as well as our digital learning calendar.